Humans are all death row inmates. If God calls you to come, you must go.
A request came from a Korean church in Philadelphia, USA, for a testimony revival meeting, so I flew the long distance.
A family came from New Jersey to meet you, Elder, and has been staying at the hotel where you'll be lodging since yesterday, waiting. Do you know them by any chance?
In the car moving from the airport to the accommodation, the pastor asked me while mentioning the name of the person waiting for me, but I had no memory of them at all. With a continuously curious heart, I arrived at that place and had my first meeting with that unfamiliar family.
Elder, you are our family's life-saving benefactor. We were so grateful that we wanted to meet you, so we all came to find you like this.
Deacon Seong-soo Kim, in his late 40s, along with his wife, parents, older sister and her husband, 2 younger siblings and their spouses, and about 4 or 5 young children, had rented several rooms on one floor of the hotel and were staying there.
I'll tell you the detailed story after tonight's service.
With my curious heart not subsiding throughout, I finished the first day's revival meeting attended by Deacon Kim's entire family, and we sat gathered closely together in the room. At the astounding story they revealed, I couldn't close my gaping mouth the entire time. It was a thriller drama that made one's palms sweat.
Elder, when we were in Korea, my spouse and I were both married to other people.
The 2 people who happened to meet at a golf course began an inappropriate relationship and eventually were sued by their spouses for both divorce and adultery charges, each serving prison sentences and being released, Deacon Kim revealed as if ashamed.
After being released, we registered our marriage and tried to live honorably. But we were so ashamed before the world that we absolutely couldn't live in Korea. Without looking back, carrying just one bundle, we crossed over to America.
With him, I really gritted my teeth and struggled desperately. There wasn't any menial work from the bottom that we didn't do.
Deacon Kim's wife finally shed tears drip by drip. After going through all kinds of hardships, they started a small golf club shop, and as a result of struggling day and night, he has now become the chairman of a major chain store in the industry.
Elder, he is still a rare filial son. Once he made money and life became stable, he called over his parents, older sister, and younger siblings one by one, set up businesses for each of them, and they all succeeded.
As the story deepened, unexpectedly, Deacon Kim hung his head even lower. When leisure came to their lives, he turned his eyes to another woman again and lived with and even had a son with a young woman of Asian descent. The family members who had entered America at his invitation owned an entire small housing complex and lived together, so the born baby was everyone's secret joy.
My in-laws secretly hushed it up behind my back and were happy, passing the baby around from house to house and cooing over it. But what must my heart have been like?
Deacon Kim barely raised his head that he had deeply lowered, and as if apologizing for his regretful feelings, held his wife's hand and continued the story.
From that time, my wife suffered from depression due to extreme stress. Even in my view, it was a serious situation, and we tried everything we could, including hospital treatment. But there was no improvement. It was something that happened because of me, but even for me, there was no other way.
One day, the moment she saw from afar the woman holding the baby and entering her in-laws' house and the family members welcoming them, she finally came to make an extreme decision. She bought 2.38 caliber 5-shot revolvers, registered at a private shooting range, and then, as ordinary people go to health clubs, diligently concentrated on shooting practice for several hours a day.
Every Christmas Eve, the whole family gathers for a grand party. I made a plan to shoot and kill all the family members on that very day, and then die myself. And I really trained hard.
Even I, who pride myself on having quite large guts, felt a chill down my spine for a moment.
Elder, I didn't know I had such talent for shooting. At the shooting range, I even got the nickname Lady Clint Eastwood. Each target looked like the faces of my in-laws' family members, so I think the gun hit better.
At those words, mixed with laughter, we laughed along, but in everyone's expressions, indescribably difficult emotions were subtly intertwined.
During that time, Not knowing what the reason for living was, I had always lived feeling empty. But when this one goal emerged, it really became worth living. Every day I counted the days waiting only for Christmas.
One day, about 3 months before that year's Christmas, she had business toward Chicago and departed on a trip for about 2 weeks. Normally, it's a very long distance, so one would use an airplane, but at that time there was a circumstance that required going by car, so she drove alone on the long road that took several days each way. During the monotonous travel road, while continuously listening to various cassette tapes to chase away sleep and overcome boredom from an out-of-place tape that someone had left behind, a story she had never heard in her life echoed forth. Content that seemed to be about Jesus, shouting loudly in a rough Gyeongsang dialect, almost made her turn it off immediately. But somehow she felt an inexplicable friendliness from that voice, so she decided to listen a bit more. Having lived like warfare until then, relying only on her own strength and being firmly united in the thought that the result was also her own responsibility whether winning or losing, the name Jesus was something she least wanted to hear about, so she was surprised at herself for such an appearance. From the car speaker, someone whose name she didn't know continued to speak passionately. Whenever I meet death row inmates, I always ask them, "Are you ready to die? Hurry and prepare to die." Since they are the ones who most hate to hear talk about dying, at these words of mine, there are those who spit in extreme displeasure, those who turn around and run away, and even those who put salt in their pockets and sprinkle it. At the interesting story, she was gradually sucked into the tape. "Hey guys, this isn't something to feel bad about. Is it only you who are death row inmates? No, I am also a death row inmate. Not just you and me, but if you look closely, all humans in this world are all death row inmates. When born, did we come in order? When going, there is no order, male or female, young or old, poor or rich, noble or common, kings or generals. Regardless of anything, if God calls you to come, you must go." The moment she heard these words, she unknowingly blurted out,
That's so true.
From that time, she was completely immersed in the story flowing from the cassette, her heart gradually swelling up, and then tears poured out to the point where she absolutely couldn't drive. She stopped the car on the shoulder, buried her face in the steering wheel sobbing, and following the salvation prayer flowing from the tape, received Jesus as her savior. On the cassette tape's surface, the address of Bethany Church in New Jersey and the words Elder H.J. Park Testimony Revival Meeting were faintly written. When she contacted that church saying she wanted to buy the entire tape set, thankfully the church sent them for free through express mail. While doing business in Chicago, the tapes were mailed, and throughout the return to New Jersey, she listened to the tapes again and again, becoming convinced of God's living presence and realizing how precious the faith of believing in Jesus is. As soon as she returned home, she began attending a nearby church, and day by day, buried in God's love, she enjoyed a joy she had never tasted even once before. Before long, Christmas came around without fail. No different from previous years, the whole family gathered at Deacon Kim's house with excited hearts, and with various events, the atmosphere of the party reached its peak.
Everyone, may I have your attention for a moment?
When Deacon Kim's wife, dressed magnificently in a dress, stood in the middle of the stairs going up to the second floor and shouted loudly, puzzled gazes were focused all at once. She slowly put both hands into her dress, pulled out 2 pistols, and looked down at the audience. At the sudden crisis situation, everyone froze in place.
Today, here, I prepared and planned to shoot and kill all the family members and then die myself.
The family members turned deathly pale with terror.
The wronged and bitter feelings I had during that time seemed like they could only be resolved by doing this. So with blood in my heart, I waited only for today.
Shedding tears and lowering both hands, holding the guns, she continued speaking.
But one day I came to know God. After believing in Jesus who accepted even death with love, I realized that even just my wrongly consumed heart was murder.
Finally, wailing burst forth.
I was wrong. Please forgive me, and I love you. My family.
throwing the pistols on the floor and herself also collapsing like a fallen old tree and sobbing, the shocking Christmas party came to a close. The family members all gathered and, looking back on the events until then, poured out various opinions.
Really, we were too much.
Even thinking from the opposite position, it's fully understandable.
Still, the pistols were too much, weren't they? Isn't this criminal behavior?
No, this is entirely our responsibility.
After several family meetings, gradually everyone's hearts became one. Deacon Kim reflected on his mistaken conduct and persuaded the child's mother well to settle the relationship. Probably considerable compensation was given, but that part no one particularly mentioned.
Elder, I decided to raise the child more preciously than my own blood. The more surprising fact is that all the family members, receiving shock and emotion from my story, attended church together and came to have faith.
From Deacon Kim's wife's eyes, the welling tears finally dropped plop onto her front. Since they were all families successful in business, their hands of devotion for the church were also generous, and above all, with the emotion that these lives that should have already died are living like this. By the Lord's grace, their faith was extraordinary. After experiencing the bitter cold winds of severe trial, the whole family became more firmly bound together, creating heaven in the peace given by God. Then one day, while this large, extended family was gathered eating a meal, someone suddenly made a suggestion.
While we're living so happily, we still haven't sought out our life-saving benefactor.
The mother-in-law responded with delight.
Right. The elder Park you're talking about, whom my daughter-in-law heard the tape from and came to believe in Jesus?
The uncle-in-law also clapped his hands and joined in.
Shouldn't a few of us at least go out to Korea to meet that elder and express our thanks as proper courtesy?
Right. Without that elder, we would already be dead people, so how could mere thanks be enough?
Thus, several family representatives decided to go out to Korea in the near future to seek out the protagonist of that tape. In the midst of this, an advertisement was published in a local newspaper that Elder H.J. Park, author of God's Ambassador to Prison, would lead a service at a Korean church somewhere in Philadelphia. Since it happened to be not far away, it was agreed that the whole family would all attend the service and convey their gratitude.
Meeting you like this, I really feel again how grateful God's grace is. As people who have gained new life, our family always pledges to live a life serving many people from now on.
At Deacon Kim's words, everyone looked at each other with expressions of solemn joy spreading. The innocent laughter of young children who don't know anything was heard from the next room.
If it weren't for the Lord's grace, could we have heard those children's laughter?
Before we knew it, we too were laughing aloud and blooming conversation flowers. When I asked Deacon Kim's wife, half-jokingly, "Did you really shoot that well?"
Yes, at the shooting range, I was among the top few fingers in skill level.
In her expression as she replied, just as playfully, the Lord's smile seemed to spread, having led everyone out from the dark world of death to the bright world of life. Even in an unfamiliar place I didn't know at all, in a different time zone, God seeks those He will save, and through any method, even through one seemingly trivial cassette tape, surely brings salvation. Having confirmed this once again, that night I achieved deeper sleep than any other time.